Let's get back to our economy now. I want to catch up with Judith Sloan, the contributing economics editor at the Australian newspaper. She joins me live from Melbourne. Well, she'll be very pleased that Carlton squeezed their way into the finals. And good to read your stuff in the Oz again today, Judith, talking about this is what the Treasurer Jim Chalmers and Anthony Albanese don't want to talk about, and that is how government spending is pushing up inflation and therefore keeping interest rates high.
Yes, Chris, well, thanks for having me. Look, I'd come across this magazine article from the mid-1990s, and there was a profile piece on Peter Costello, including some other international leaders too. And he was very definite in what his aim was as the newly elected, newly installed Treasurer, and that was to balance the budget, live within our means, and actually he talked about reforming the tax system. And it just occurred to me, we don't hear our Treasurer, we don't hear Jim Chalmers talking about living within our means. And indeed, in the May budget, the viewers might remember that he had absolutely no compunction in announcing 4 substantial deficits over the forward estimates, and he showed no embarrassment at all.
Yeah, and living within our means is what we all have to do. And of course, we all carry debt as well, usually, but we have to keep our debt down so that we can live within our means and service our debt. So we know it's a similar story with governments. I thought your column today, you included an absolutely brilliant quote from the famous economist Milton Friedman, and he says, keep your eye on one thing and one thing only: how much government is spending, because that's the true tax. If you're not paying for it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation or in the form of borrowing. They spend, Judith, and we all pay.
Well, exactly. And the point I'm trying to make is that you know, they're basically universal truths. There are some absolutely fabulous other quotes from Milton Friedman, I might add. And as it was true then, he won the Nobel Prize. They're true today. But, you know, I think COVID, and possibly even going back to the GFC, there was a sort of myths that were pushed by governments, which was sort of along the lines that kind of money grows on trees. I think that was particularly true during the COVID period. The whole debt and deficit discussion that was so important, actually, even during Wayne Swan's period as Treasurer, has just seemingly disappeared. But my prediction is that, you know, this is going to come back, probably with a bit of a tsunami-like impact. And I quote some other governments, including the US, which has a completely out of control fiscal position. It has a deficit at the moment of about $1.7 trillion, which is over 6% of GDP. And everyone seems to take a very relaxed attitude to it at the moment. There will come a time when we're not quite so relaxed.
Yeah, I can remember when they were doing all that spending during the pandemic, one of the arguments they used for the fact that there wouldn't need to be a reckoning was that all governments are essentially doing it. But surely that means that maybe globally the reckoning will be even more severe. It's very difficult for oppositions to try and win their way into power promising to spend less, promising to cut spending. But that's what the coalition is going to have to do, and they've started to talk in those terms. Here's Angus Taylor today.
He's fighting the Reserve Bank, he's fighting the Productivity Commission, and he is fighting the laws of economics in this country, because he thinks that the way to beat inflation is to throw more money at it, and that has never been true and never will be true.
Yeah, Judith, just to wrap up, your thoughts on this never-ending interplay between politics and economics. The coalition knows that government spending has to be cut, but politically it's always a difficult sell.
Well, it is. And, you know, I make the point that, you know, the beneficiaries of government spending are generally concentrated and fairly clear who they are, whereas those who are bearing the costs through higher taxes and inflation and the like, well, they're kind of dispersed. So, you know, and I think we've seen Albanese today even talk about, well, you know, where are the cuts, you know, raise the gang, austerity. I just hope the coalition holds its nerve, because I think people do realise that there's a tremendous amount of wasted spending.
Yep.
And they are concerned about what the long-run implications of it are.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Judith. A lot of sense there, and good luck to your Blues in the finals.